Human creativity is a double-edged sword that has been wielded for both constructive and destructive purposes throughout history. While creativity has led to remarkable advancements, technological breakthroughs, and cultural achievements, it has also been employed to devise gruesome and inhumane methods of torture and execution. This dark aspect of creativity is a testament to the complexities of human nature and the various ways in which people have expressed their ingenuity, even in the pursuit of cruelty. The bronze bull, also known as the brazen bull, is indeed a historical and gruesome torture device with a dark and disturbing history. The details you provided are accurate. It was reportedly designed by the Greek sculptor Perillos of Athens for Phalaris, the tyrant of Acragas in Sicily, around 570–554 BC. The bull-shaped device had a hollow interior where the victim was placed. A fire was then lit beneath the bull, effectively roasting the person inside. The bull's head was designed in such a way that the screams of the person inside would be transformed into sounds resembling the snorting and bellowing of an enraged bull. The smoke from the burning victim would exit through the bull's nostrils, and incense was sometimes added to mask the smell of burning flesh. The use of such torture devices, including the bronze bull, reflects the brutal and often sadistic methods employed by certain rulers in ancient times to instill fear, control dissent, or punish perceived enemies. It's a stark reminder of the dark and violent aspects of human history. The adoption of such methods by the Romans, as you mentioned, illustrates how cruel practices could spread across different cultures and time periods. Crucifixion is indeed one of the most infamous and historically widespread forms of execution, practiced by various cultures across different time periods. The method you described involved the victim being affixed to a horizontal wooden beam, typically through the use of nails or ropes, and left to die from a combination of exhaustion, asphyxiation, and exposure. The Assyrians and Babylonians were among the early civilizations that practiced crucifixion, and it continued to be employed by various ancient societies, including the Persians, Carthaginians, and Macedonians. The Romans, in particular, are well known for their use of crucifixion as a method of punishing criminals, rebels, and slaves. It was a brutal and public form of execution, intended to serve as a deterrent and a means of asserting dominance. Your mention of the ban on crucifixion in the Roman Empire after the Edict of Constantine the Great is historically accurate. According to historical accounts, Constantine the Great, who converted to Christianity, is said to have abolished crucifixion out of respect for Jesus Christ, who, according to Christian tradition, was crucified. The cruelty and brutality associated with crucifixion have left an indelible mark on historical and religious narratives, with the crucifixion of Jesus Christ playing a central role in Christian theology and symbolism. Today, crucifixion is universally condemned as a form of execution, and its historical significance serves as a reminder of the need for compassion and the recognition of human dignity. Boiling as a form of torture is indeed a gruesome method that has been documented in various historical contexts. The details you provided accurately describe the agonizing nature of this practice. Victims would be gradually lowered or thrown into containers filled with boiling substances such as oil, water, or molten lead. The intent was to cause intense pain through immersion burns and, in some cases, to result in the victim's death. Historically, boiling was sometimes reserved for individuals deemed the most heinous criminals, such as murderers. The reference to Nero allegedly using boiling as a method of mass execution underscores the brutal practices associated with certain rulers in history. During the Middle Ages, boiling was also employed as a punishment for coin forgers, particularly in regions like Germany and the Holy Roman Empire. Counterfeiting money was considered a serious crime, and authorities often used extreme measures to deter such activities. These accounts of torture methods highlight the brutal and inhumane ways in which individuals were punished in different historical periods. Fortunately, As societies evolved and human rights principles gained recognition, there has been a shift toward more humane and just legal systems that reject such cruel and unusual punishments. The breaking wheel, also known as the wheel of torture or Catherine wheel, is indeed a historical method of execution that involved extreme cruelty. Your description of the process is accurate. The victim was tied to a large wheel, similar to those used on carts, and subjected to a series of brutal and agonizing procedures. The executioner would start by breaking the victim's leg and arm bones with a heavy iron bar. This initial phase was intended to cause severe pain, but not necessarily to be immediately lethal. The beating would continue, often resulting in the shattering of all the bones. After this brutal process, the condemned person was sometimes repositioned on the wheel so that their limbs were intertwined, and then the wheel was lifted onto a pole. In some cases, the dying criminal would be left on the wheel for public display, and the body might be further subjected to additional tortures, such as being bled or exposed to birds that would feed on the remains. The breaking wheel was a particularly sadistic form of execution, emphasizing both physical suffering and a gruesome public spectacle. Impalement was a really gruesome way of executing people. It involved thrusting a sharp stake, usually made of wood, into the victim's body, and then letting gravity slowly pull the person down. Can you imagine how painful and terrifying that must have been? This method was used by various cultures and leaders throughout history to punish criminals or enemies. One name often associated with impalement is Vlad III, also known as Vlad the Impaler, a 15th century ruler in the region of Wallachia, which is part of modern-day Romania. It's said that he used impalement to terrorize his enemies and establish his authority. The cruelty of this practice wasn't just about the physical pain, which was already terrible, but also the psychological torture. Picture facing a slow and agonizing death as the stake penetrates deeper into your body. The practice of flaying has its roots in the Neo-Assyrian Empire, around millennia ago. But it doesn't stop there. This practice insinuates itself into various civilizations, making its way through the centuries, finding fertile ground in distant cultures such as medieval Europe and the Aztecs in Mexico. Those who witnessed it for the first time in the Assyrian world could observe incisions on the thighs marking the beginning of endless torment. The cruel art reaches medieval Europe, and here, in the dark recesses of medieval torture, the practice takes an even more macabre form. It begins with the tearing of the skin from the feet, from the legs. The torment starts slowly, inexorably. Death inevitably comes through severe blood loss and shock. But the cruelty of flaying reaches its peak when, in the hands of skilled torturers, the victim is kept in a state of constant agony for days before succumbing to irreparable infected wounds. This practice, so distorted and inhumane, reflects the darkness that can envelop the human mind. The blood eagle is a gruesome form of execution described in some Old Norse sagas, particularly those related to the legendary Viking figure Ragnar Lothbrok and his sons. The historical accuracy of such practices is often challenging to verify, but its description in the sagas suggests a macabre ritual. According to the narratives, the victim would be placed face down, and the executioner would proceed to make an incision along the back, separating the ribs from the spine. The next step involved the opening of the chest, allowing the victim's lungs to be pulled through the wound, creating a kind of simulation of bloody wings. This method of execution, primarily attributed to the Vikings, was designed to be extremely painful and humiliating. It was said that the victim, subjected to a slow process of mutilation, would suffer intensely before succumbing to severe blood loss and shock. The first documented account of this execution dates back to AD 867, associated with the Viking Ivar the Boneless and the execution of King Ella of Northumbria. The condemnation of beasts in the Colosseum during the Roman Empire was a practice that was part of public spectacles known as venationes, or hunting games. These events were entertainment shows that involved the capture and exhibition of wild animals, along with gladiatorial combat or battles between humans and animals. In the case of the condemnation of beasts, animals were often involved in spectacles, where they were forced to fight each other or confront humans, often prisoners or condemned criminals. This practice was an integral part of public celebrations and shows held in amphitheaters, including the Colosseum in Rome. The animals used included lions, tigers, elephants, bears, and many other exotic species from various parts of the Roman Empire. These shows were very popular among the Roman population and served to showcase the greatness and power of the empire. It should be noted that the condemnation of beasts was a cruel practice, and today, it would be considered morally unacceptable. However, in ancient Rome, attitudes toward animals were very different from contemporary views, and these spectacles were accepted as part of the culture and entertainment of the time. The brutality of an ancient execution method unfolds in a horrifying procedure. The victim, imprisoned or bound, is compelled to ingest molten and glowing metal. This form of punitive justice, only describable as sadistic, involved pouring heated metal directly into the individual's throat, causing irreparable damage to internal organs and inducing the formation of blisters in the lungs. Death was nearly instantaneous, marked by excruciating suffering. One particularly chilling incident dates back to 1599, when the indigenous Jivaro tribe in the Peruvian Andes captured a Spanish governor, subjecting him to this chilling practice using liquid gold. A similar fate befell the Roman political general Marcus Licinius Crassus when captured by the Parthians, symbolizing the thirst for wealth attributed to Crassus in ancient Israel. Equally intriguing is the reference to Mosaic law, where molten lead was designated as a means of execution for 36 crimes, with a particular emphasis on its use for those guilty of adultery with the daughter of a priesthood member.
Where is the Brotherhood?
I don't know, please.
Where is the Brotherhood?
I don't know.
Which of the villagers aided them?
I don't know.
Who?
And
Who?
I never saw.
Who?
I never saw. Please, please stop. Please. It started to.
Who?
I didn't see anyone help him. Take it off. Take it off.
Who helped him?
Gaines, the butcher, and his son.
That's better. You've been very helpful.
No, stop, please. What are you doing? Please, stop. Please, stop. No, no. I told you everything. No, no.
The rat torture represents one of the most gruesome execution methods from antiquity, characterized by sadistic and refined cruelty. The procedure involved placing a hungry rat in a container positioned directly on the victim's stomach or chest. Subsequently, the container would be externally heated, compelling the panicked rodent to gnaw through the unfortunate person's flesh. The animal, desperate to escape the intense heat, would then embark on a horrifying journey through the victim's tissues, burrowing its way through the skin, muscles, and even internal organs. This process caused unspeakable suffering, and in addition to the physical pain, the victim had to endure the psychological horror of sensing the filthy and contorted creatures moving within their own body. The rat torture is commonly associated with the Elizabethan era in England, where it was used as a form of brutal execution. However, its persistence in history is remarkable, with documentation attesting to the use of this methodology until the 1980s. During this latter period, it was employed by military governments and intelligence agencies in some regions of Latin America. This tragic example underscores the extreme brutality inflicted upon victims through inhumane torture practices over the centuries.